Wow, I cannot tell you how excited I am to make this video. It is finally mid-July, which to me it's like Halloween and fall are getting closer. This is what I call Summerween. So if you don't know what Summerween is, it is basically like the time of summer where it's so hot and it's getting close to like August and September. So you're getting all of your autumn, Halloween, spooky feels, but it's not quite yet fall. Summerween is unique in that it has the spooky fall vibes, but it still has a twist to summer. So like the heat, summer camp vibes, like slasher films. In this video, I'm going to be pretending that it's actually fall despite it being summer. So I'm going to be picking out a few spooky books that I'm going to be reading in the video. Thrillers, mysteries. I'm going to be doing a little fall night routine and using some of my like spooky like Halloween products and just pretending that it's fall, but it's not. It's like 95 degrees, or at least in Florida, it's like 1,000 degrees. So it really is summer for me. So I'm just going to kind of go into Delulu land and be delusional and pretend that it's fall for at least this video. So I hope you enjoy. I hope you get all of the spooky vibes that you're craving this Summerween. And as always, thank you for being here. I already kind of started reading the first book that's in my Summerween TBR, and that is Dead 11. I picked this up last year. The first thing that intrigued me was the VHS cover. So I'm what I consider a very young millennial, so VHS cassettes were part of my childhood. It's what we watched a lot of our favorite shows and movies on. So I immediately picked this up because the 90s baby in me was like, whatever this is, I'm gonna like it. And it was in the thriller section. It is about this town, I think in like a remote part of Wisconsin, if I'm not mistaken. And this town is stuck in the 90s, I think specifically 1994. Everything that this town does is very reminiscent of that time period, and it does not change. The town seems to have really strict rules about what you can do and how you can act, but it's basically stuck in the 90s. And there are some newcomers that come in. I think our main character goes on like a mission to find out what happened to his sister who was last seen in this town. And then she was also in that town trying to get some answers about something. And so just very like spooky and odd things are happening in this town, and no one will give them a straight answer as to why people are behaving the way that they are. And apparently like at nighttime you have to close your curtains, and nobody's saying like why you should be doing that. There's something outside, but I can't figure out what it is yet. Like, is it aliens? Like, what is it? Thought that it would be fun if we could go and look at some books on my shelf. I'm going for summer camp, southern, maybe like southern town. I'm thinking of either doing Horrorstor, which looks like some very scary version of IKEA, and it's Grady Hendrix. So if you read Grady Hendrix, you know that his books are perfect for Summerween, and this one looks pretty like easy to read and short. So I'm going to put this in my stack. He did write My Best Friend's Exorcism and also Epitome. Like epitome of Summerween. You've got 80s vibes, Stranger Things vibes. I mean, it couldn't get better than this. So I'm going to add this to my stack. I'm not saying that everything I like go shopping for right here is what I will be able to read, but it's going in my Summerween TBR, you know? Another book that I did read like 2 summers ago is Clown in a Cornfield. It's like some like kind of a feud between students and teachers, like adults and kids in this town. So there's a lot going on in that book, but there is a second book called Clown in a Cornfield, Friendo Lives Too. So I don't know, am I feeling clown vibes for this Summerween? I think so. I'm doing this in this video. It's gonna be very exciting, scary stories to tell in the dark. This was also like a part of my childhood, so I have a very fun thing I'm going to be doing with this later. This is my mystery shelf, but I think I'm going to be adding the Inugami Curse. 1940s Japan, the wealthy head of the Inugami clan dies, and his family eagerly awaits the reading of the will. But no sooner are its strange details revealed than a series of bizarre, gruesome murder begins. Just found 2 more that I think would be good for my pile. Summer Suns and Cicadas Sing of Summer Graves. There are 2 middle grades that I want to put on my TBR. They are the Goosebumps series, part of my childhood. Had to put this on this list. So I've got Goosebumps, The Scarecrow Walks at Midnight, and I've got Most Wanted. So these look very spooky. Here is my very well-rounded Summerween TBR. I've got multiple genres, multiple age groups here so that it's not repetitive. I don't expect to get through all these in this video, but definitely a good amount. Progress. I did finish Dead 11, but there is some sort of belief that this town holds, so I don't want to spoil it because if I explain it, then it's going to kind of spoil it, but this was a very good read, 10 out of 10. I was like dying to figure out what was actually going on in this town, so I had to finish it in like 2 sittings, and I did, and I just really enjoyed it. I'm so glad I finally got around to reading this summer, so I'm going to pick my next read for this video. I am going with Grady Hendrix's Horrorstor. So I am very, very intrigued by this. If you don't know, this kind of looks like it's very reminiscent of an IKEA catalog or like IKEA advertisement, like just the Swedish kind of look, and also like, you know, all the pieces of furniture just on this cover. Also, excuse the lighting in here. It's deliberately this dark in this room for a reason. Tonight, I wanted to do something kind of fun, a little scary, a little different that I've been thinking about since last Halloween, and it is going to be reading Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I remember checking this book out from the library in middle school and just absolutely loving it, and I think this book is like a compilation of a few books, so I'm going to be turning off the lights in this room, surrounded by just some little lights, candlelight, and I'm going to be reading this to myself in the dark. So I've never done anything like this before, so let's just do it. Okay, so I have found, this is so scary looking. I honestly don't remember half of these, but I am going to be reading a few of these little short clippings. The first one is called The Thing. So now that I have this open, I am going to go turn off my little light there. Immediately regretting this decision. This is so creepy. I'm gonna bring this little candle close to me so I can see what I'm reading because my vision is already bad. The Thing. Ted Martin and Sam Miller were good friends. They spent a lot of time together. On this particular night, they were sitting on a fence near the post office talking about one thing and another. There was a field of turnips across the road. Suddenly, they saw something crawl out of the field and stand up. It looked like a man, but in the dark, it was hard to tell for sure. Then it was gone. But soon it appeared again. It walked halfway across the road, then it turned around and went back into the field. I'm getting shivers down my spine already. Then it came out a third time and started toward them. By now, Ted and Sam were scared, and they started running. But when they finally stopped, they decided they were being foolish. They weren't sure what had scared them, so they decided to go back and get a better look. Pretty soon they saw it, for it was coming to meet them. It was wearing black pants, a white shirt, and black suspenders. Sam said, "I'm going to try to touch it. Then we'll know if it's real." He walked up to it and peered into its face. It had bright, penetrating eyes sunk deep in its head. It looked like a skeleton. Ted took one look and screamed, and again he and Sam ran, but this time the skeleton followed them. When they got to Ted's house, they stood in the doorway and watched it. It stayed out in the road for a while, then it disappeared. A year later, Ted got sick and died. Toward the end, Sam sat up with him every night. The night Ted died, Sam said he looked just like the skeleton. Ugh, so corny, but like still scary. Cold as clay. And this is the picture. You can't really see it that well. But a farmer had a daughter for whom he cared more than anything on earth. She fell in love with a farmhand named Jim, but the farmer did not think Jim was good enough for his daughter. To keep them apart, he sent her to live with her uncle on the other side of the county. Soon after she left, Jim got sick and he wasted away and died. Everyone said he died of a broken heart. The farmer felt so guilty about Jim's death he could not tell his daughter what had happened. She continued to think about Jim and the life they might have had together. One night, many weeks later, there was a knock on her uncle's door. When the girl opened the door, Jim was standing there. "Your father asked me to get you," he said. "I came on his best horse." "Is there anything wrong?" she asked. "I don't know," he said. She packed a few things and they left. She rode behind him, clinging to his waist. Soon he complained of a headache. "It aches something terrible," he told her. She put her hand on his forehead. "Why, you are as cold as clay," she said. "I hope you are not ill." And she wrapped her handkerchief around his head. They traveled so swiftly that in a few hours they reached the farm. The girl quickly dismounted and knocked on the door. Her father was startled to see her. "Didn't you send for me?" she asked. "No, I didn't," he said. She turned to Jim, but he was gone and so was the horse. They went to the stable to look for them. The horse was there. It was covered with sweat and trembling with fear, but there was no sign of Jim. Terrified, her father told her the truth about Jim's death. Then quickly he went to see Jim's parents. They decided to open his grave. The corpse was in its coffin, but around its head they found the girl's handkerchief. I am going to read one more. I'm thinking I might turn off this ghost light and really make it spooky. Uh-oh. It's getting dark. I'm gonna turn off my little toaster light too. Now it's actually dark. Okay, this is creepy. I'm gonna read now The Guests. A young man and his wife were on a trip to visit his mother. Usually they arrived in time for supper, but they had gotten a late start. And now it was getting dark, so they decided to look for a place to stay overnight and go on in the morning. Just off the road, they saw a small house in the woods. Maybe they rent rooms, the wife said, so they stopped to ask. An elderly man and woman came to the door. They didn't rent rooms, they said, and they would be glad to have them stay overnight as their guests. They had plenty of room and they would enjoy the company. The old woman made coffee and brought out some cake, and the four of them talked for a while. Then the young couple were taken to their room. They again explained that they wanted to pay for this, but the old man said he would not accept any money. The young couple got up early the next morning before their hosts had awakened. On a table near the front door, they left an envelope with some money in it for the room. Then they went on into the next town. They stopped in a restaurant and had breakfast. When they told the owner where they had stayed, he was shocked. "That can't be," he said. "That house burned to the ground and the man and the woman who lived there died in the fire." The young couple could not believe it, so they went back to the house. Only now there was no house. All they found was a burnt-out shell. They stood staring at the ruins, trying to understand what had happened. Then the woman screamed. In the rubble was a badly burned table like the one they had seen by the front door. On the table was the envelope they had left that morning. Ooh. Okay. I think I'm going to stop reading for the night, at least in this darkness, because my eyes are not enjoying this at all. But thank you for joining me on this really spooky, creepy read-along of scary stories to tell in the dark. I just made it to Barnes& Noble. It was so rainy on my way here. I'm glad I made it, but we're just gonna go inside and see what spooky books we can find. Of course I didn't find any spooky books to take home, but I did find a jazz age noir book called Ex-Wife by Ursula Parrott, and it's a sharp, intimate account of a failed marriage, love affairs, and just a bunch of scandalous things. When this book did come out, I believe in the 20s or 30s, it did cause kind of an uproar. Picked up The Birth of Venus by Sarah Dunant, and it's about Alessandra, whose passion is painting, but she's put in a forced marriage and she just wants to paint, but her husband and her family don't approve, and it takes place in Medici, Italy. Good evening, friends. It is now Tuesday night and I have an update on Horrorstor by Grady Hendrix. This book is so terrifying. I actually was scared reading it. I'm almost done with it. This is supposed to be what we know as IKEA. It's funny because IKEA is actually mentioned in this book, but it is not IKEA. It's kind of like a knockoff of IKEA. Something is happening in the store after hours, like furniture's getting vandalized, like weird things, weird smells are going on. Management decides to set up a covert operation with a few employees. One of the employees is the narrator, and she's our main character, and she's not super enthusiastic about her job as is. She agrees to the covert operation to see who is breaking into this store at night and why are they doing this. I think what makes this scary over just say books like Stephen King or something is that this is, even though this store itself is fake, this is a store that we all know and love. Like me, I love IKEA. It's one of my favorite places ever. So it's when you put a setting like this that's so familiar to us and just everyday to us in a horror book, it makes it so scary because it's so real. For those of you that don't know, IKEA has a psychology to it, and it's not that hard to see, but basically if you've ever been to IKEA, you know that you start in the showroom and you go through bedrooms, kitchen, office, storage, all of that order, but there are no exits really, which is kind of scary. There are no exits, and you're kind of stuck in the store. If you want to leave, you either have to go out the way you came or you have to go all the way to the other end of the store. But it is designed that way so that you're in an immersive shopping experience and you buy things you don't need. They bring up that psychology in this book, but in a very terrifying way, as you can imagine. I have some dark chocolate brownies. I thought it would be great to just make maybe some hot cocoa, put some marshmallows in it, get some brownies going, finish this book. Oh my gosh. Such a good book, but so scary. Finished Horrorstor. I am shook. This was crazy. It was a wild ride. I am a major IKEA enthusiast, and after reading this, I'm still an IKEA enthusiast, but I will never look at those long hallways and fake doors and all of that the same, because they explore the concept of the fake doors in IKEA not really being fake doors in this book. So I flew by that book so fast that my hot chocolate is still too hot for me to drink. And that's probably because I stuffed the top of it with marshmallows, so the heat isn't really dissipating. I'm probably going to finish up my hot chocolate for the night, pick out my next book. This will be, that was Summerween book 2. So yeah, I'm gonna wrap up here. I'm gonna put Horrorstor away. Bye.